If you're on now, welcome to the Proactive Health Collective of Keene, your source for, what is it?
Vibrant health.
Vibrant health. I can't read my writing. Source for vibrant health now.
Something like that.
So we're all going to get this, we're waiting for this to go live, and we're going to share it to our Facebook feed. So if you all just hang in there, at least for me anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it streaming.
I
Yep.
can't.
I'm going to share it.
Yeah, all right. Hello, Zoom world. Hello, Facebook land. Hello, podcast.
Thanks for bearing with us here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello to those people live, and hello to those people that are catching us on the recording down the road. Maybe you're enjoying this on a walk or just a nice introspective time. Enjoying some of this amazing downtime that we have, that little sliver of light that is truly a gift in the middle of this crisis.
All right, I'm ready. Is everyone ready?
I think I'm ready to go. I'm just getting this on both of my pages here. We're trying to get all this technical stuff in a row. It's our third wild ride, and so we're trying to still work out the kinks, but thanks to our IT
Is this the
support.
third one? I feel like we've been doing this forever. Isn't it the fourth one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done 3 already.
I beg to differ, but I'll argue with you all later.
So welcome everyone. So, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus, as an opportunity, really. We've kind of mentioned this concept, I think, early on in the first episode. I think we're going to dive in a little deeper, I think, in my life, I think if I look back, I've had many challenges, and sometimes I've shrunk to those challenges, and they were kind of scary, and then there was times that I've trusted that it would be okay, and I went towards what I wanted, and I noticed that all those times were the times that my life, expanded or I grew. And so, one of the things we've been talking about as practitioners here is how much fear we're seeing in the community. And obviously fear there's nothing wrong necessarily with fear. If a bear jumps out and is going to attack you, you rightfully should have fear. But a lot of the fear that we create in our lives is based on a story that we're making up in our head. And that story can be influenced by things we're experiencing, things media and things like that. But I think acknowledging fear is important, and then using it as a way to come to a higher place. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that as I look around, this is a crucial time of decisions that we're making as a culture, as a society. And if we are making those decisions, that could literally alter how we structure our lives and the nature of the autonomy that we have on our own body and things of that nature. It's critical that we look at that and make these decisions based on understanding and knowledge, not on fear. And so I think that's one of the of all the challenges that have come about with this COVID-19 situation and the sequestering and how it affects business. Well, one of I think the biggest challenges is that there's like a blanket of fear that's over the whole country. And I think that in of itself can be one of the most damaging, if not the most damaging thing. So anybody want to pipe in on that thought? So we're gonna talk about that. I think it's important to kind of explore the underlying reasons why we're having this fear and the direction that we go and where we came from. So
Yeah, I have I saw on my Facebook feed yesterday, somebody in New Mexico writes, "Does anyone else just feel confused? I feel safe in my home, but I also know I could die at any second or get sick in 2 weeks from simply touching my face that one time." And she goes on to explain all of the stress in her life that's been caused because of this. And so, my question is really, is this level of fear really warranted? And it's really causing so much suffering.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's because we're looking at it one way. We're just looking at one thing, and that's kind of the way we've been sort of indoctrinated through the media to think that the risk is equal to everyone, that this virus is different than other viruses that we've encountered throughout history, and that we have no control. And I think that's the whole thing, when people feel they have absolutely no control. Mitigation, or the so-called lockdown, is how people respond to feel like they have control. Whether it exerts any control or not is the question. I don't think it does, but it gives us a feeling of control. And so I think sometimes that kind of encourages us to go along with measures that we don't really think through very carefully. We just sort of bolt into fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, well, that, the control aspect, just so we focus on the nervous system and nervous system health in our office. So speaking about this in terms of the neurology and how, if we track this through and then apply this to a social science, so then it's nice to have all the numbers and to look at this stuff through all the advanced testing. How does it actually play out into someone's life? So let's make it simple. And when we're presented with a challenge of any sort, the nervous system goes through a series of steps. So what you may experience and or what, right? You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So first thing that the nervous system will do, and the brain, if we map this, is that it will try to map a challenge through memory. Do I have something in the past that relates to this that then will help me navigate this? Such as I touched poison ivy once and it was bad. So now when I see those shiny 3 leaves, I won't touch it again. That type of a thing. The next thing, if we have no reference for it in our past, so in other words, let's just say hypothetically, someone encounters an animal on a landscape. It's an animal they've never seen before. Their brain is running through, is it a tiger? Is it a lion? Is it a bear? I don't know. So if that doesn't work, the next thing we'll do is that we'll look to, can I fight it or flight it? In other words, can I just get out of the situation? Or in a rare case, can I actually confront this and change it? Obviously, in our current situation, neither of those are going to work. So the third thing the nervous system does is that it tries to fit in with it. Can I fit in with what's happening here? Can I go along with everything and just be fine? If that doesn't work, the next thing that we'll map out in the system is that it will try to control it. So we're seeing a lot of that. If that fails, what will ultimately happen is that people will go into a survival mode of protection, where they'll try to protect every bit of life force that they have left. And that's really a shutdown of the nervous system. It's completely guarded. This shows up in depressive posture, that type of an idea, the head forward, tail tuck, sort of like protecting the heart, because it's just, frankly, it's just too much. And I don't have anything, there's nothing in the past. I can't fight or flight it. I can't fit in with it, and I can't control it. So I have to protect what's left. And that's how we map the progression of that in the nervous system.
Yeah, it's fine. It's really interesting. I'm running across, because we're still helping people, and people who are doing virtual consultations, and people are coming to the office, and I'm finding a mix of different responses to what's going on. I have some people that are saying, this is my opportunity. Like, I've never had a chance to do this, and I'm going to start paying attention to focusing on myself and bettering my health, for instance, as for instance. And then other people are saying, well, with everything going on, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to not do anything. And people are getting frozen of fear. It's the same situation, we're experiencing, but we have different opportunities to respond in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the health of the system in that moment. Hans Seeley, who's a Nobel Prize winner for his work in regards to stress. So what's the stress response? And then ultimately, how does that play out in the body? So we know that stress decreases immunity. We know that stress increases disease. We know that stress decreases cortical function, decision-making, and the opportunity to have a bandwidth that can run the higher reaches of the brain. the angel lobes, as we call them, the frontal cortex. It takes a lot of energy to run that. And you can't run that if you're running fear. And it boiled down to 4 things that he found to be the most resilient aspect of someone when dealing with stress. So basically, the 4 things were the momentum that they already had in their lives. In other words, preparation is key. So the momentum that they built. The next one was the staying power. In other words, their ability to endure and not go down the drain on certain things, but be able to sort of weather the storm, sway in the breeze. Buildings and bridges are made to sway. Yeah. The other thing was that the resistance of the system, again, strength aspect. And the 4th one, which I absolutely love, is robust wellness. Robust wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think of yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so interested in your line of work, Dr. Matt and Dr. Tisa too, and how you guys can tell, because the way that you practice chiropractic, but a lot of the work that you do is actually off of the body. So you can feel, I get the impression that you kind of feel this reverberation. And has that sort of changed in the midst of sort of the COVID, the patients coming in, and is it feeling different, or like how does the nervous system how do you interpret that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very interesting how it is playing out in people's bodies. And I was telling Dr. Matt this, I was like, are you noticing when you feel, like especially in the legs, there's a lot of energy, excuse me, in the calves. And I was telling him this, I had a whole shift basically working on people, and I could feel the energy within people's calves. And I was trying to like use the fuel and help it bring more energy up into the access points, the spinal gateway points that we work with to help the body be at ease. And I was telling him, I was like, isn't that interesting? There's a certain tension pattern that a lot of people are in, which is more the, oh no, like the vibration is uncertainty, scared, victim mindset. Not saying that that's exactly how they feel, but that's the tension pattern that's showing up. But the fuel that is in the legs, because the fight or flight is on board and people aren't sure what to do. And so it's like they're ready to run from this, and really helping bring that fuel from the legs into the spine to really help calm the system down a little bit more, get it out of the legs and help it move through the body. So it's funny that you say that. And we did have a gal who called a couple weeks ago. She was just like frantic. She was just like, I just got yelled at the co-op for standing too close to somebody, and I don't know what to do. I didn't even want to come into Keene today. Like, she was going on and on and on. And she was just like, I don't think I can come in. And I was like, wait. I was like, it sounds like you're kind of in a sympathetic response right now. Your body is in protective and survival mode. And I was like, that's exactly why you need to get in here. And this was a couple weeks ago. And she did. She's like, well, I don't know. Yes. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, back and forth. And I go, well, your appointment's at this time. We'll see you then. And she's like, okay, maybe, like the uncertainty. Right. And so she does come in, and she I think actually Dr. Matt saw her, and I was up front when she came out, and she goes, oh my gosh, I am so glad you talked me off the ledge. Like, she specifically said that, because this franticness within society, like, she's like, it was so unnecessary. And she's like, I don't know why I responded that way, but I'm really glad I came in. And then I saw her yesterday, and she even mentioned it again. She was like, I am so glad I spoke with you. And I kept coming in these few weeks because I'm handling it so much better. And so I didn't obviously feel her spine that day, but I'm sure Matt could attest to what he might feel and notice the same similarities in response of how people are responding to this.
Yeah,
it's
the
almost
fight or
like
flight effect is the motor nerves over fire. So you can map that out and take a look at what's happening in the motor nerves throughout someone's system. They're literally trying to flight something right now, but they're not moving. It's locked in. And that's a great example. Allison, you said, sometimes we focus, off of the body, and that's really just an acknowledgement that we are so sensitive, that truly the human operating system is incredibly sensitive, and that you have the ability to pick up on subtle cues and feelings. And when we acknowledge that, what we're doing is just acknowledging someone's sensitivity, so that then we can work directly with the spine, the connective tissue, the muscles, and really get into the body.
And when I think about this, I think about the collective nature of this response that people are in, and how it, the term we use, entrainment. Like, if you hang out with a bunch of people on Wall Street, you begin to be in that state. If you hang out with the trees, you begin to calm down. And so we have this like collective fear that's happening. And I'd sort of like to talk about, why, if you think about in terms of, we're all natural practitioners, so we have a certain philosophy that we come from. We trust that the body knows what it's doing. We're trying to enhance its own ability to operate. And, there's sort of the other side of the coin is your, more traditional medical approach, which is to suppress things in the body. Oh, we have a fever, we need to bring it down. Whatever symptom we have, the object is really to suppress that symptom versus honor that symptom and understand that the body is actually very smart and trying to do what it needs to do. So this sort of way of thinking, I think, has dominated not only the medical system, but really I think our society in general in fear. And I think, this coronavirus thing has caused a lot of fear, but I don't think it's actually caused fear. I think it's awakened fear that's within all of us already. It's just another opportunity for us to look at it and to then, kind of look at, well, how did we get here? What are the decisions we're making? Because again, all of this translates to when we're in fear, like you were talking about, Drs. Matt and Dr. Tisha, we're in a place where we're making decisions that aren't necessarily for our good and for the greater good of our culture. And so right now, I think there's a lot of information coming at us, and, we can just be watching the news and just being led down like we're almost asleep and just being put more into fear. And I think it's really important that we sort of step back out of our fear and question things. And it doesn't mean that we have to be conspiracy theorists, I think, but it means that it's such an important thing that it's not good enough for us just to check out. I think we need to be aware of things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if I could jump in there, because I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. But I think one of our problems today is that we look at, as John Rappaport has so well put, one disease, one cause. So there's so much fear around where did this come from? And if we had known sooner, if we'd started to do, clamp down, lock down sooner, would this have been different? And did it come out of a Wuhan lab? And is it bioengineering and all of this kind of thing? And bats in the Hunan caves and all of this sort of stuff. So we look at a virus, we look at this is one thing, one cause. And I think rarely is that ever the case. And I think what has probably come together here is a synergy, kind of like the perfect storm. And don't go away, people, when I start to talk about 5G, because if you follow me, I didn't just read a blog where somebody said, oh, see, it's 5G. I'm going to try to build a little thread here, so if my colleagues will just indulge me for a few minutes.
Absolutely.
First, I want to say, I'm reading this, I just got this really cool book, which is The Invisible Rainbow, A History of Electricity and Life by Arthur Furstenberg. And over the last 220 years, society has evolved a universal belief that electricity is safe for humanity and the planet. Scientist and journal Arthur Furstenberg disrupts this conviction by telling the story of electricity in a way it has never been told before, from an environmental point of view, by detailing the effects that this fundamental societal building block has had on our health and our planet. In The Invisible Rainbow, Furstenberg traces the history of electricity from the early 19th century to the present, making a compelling case that many environmental problems, as well as the major diseases of the industrialized civilization, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, are related to electrical pollution. And again, I might be taking center stage here for a little bit, but I just want to weave this thread. His prologue, which is very well written. Once upon a time, the rainbow visible in the sky after a storm represented all the colors there were. Our Earth was designed that way. We have a blanket of air above us that absorbs the higher ultraviolets together with all of the X-rays and gamma rays from space. Most of the longer waves that we use today for radio communication were once absent as well. Or rather, they were there in infinitesimal amounts. They came to us from the sun and stars, but with energies that were 1 trillion times weaker than the light that also came from the heavens. So weak were the cosmic radio waves that they would have been invisible. And so life never developed organs that could see them. The even longer waves, the low frequency pulsations given off by lightning, were also invisible. When lightning flashes, it momentarily fills the air with them, but they are almost gone in an instant. Their echo, reverberating around the world, is roughly 10 billion times weaker than the light from the sun. We never evolved organs to see these either, but our bodies know that those colors are there. The energy of our cells whispering in the radio frequency range is infinitesimal but necessary for life. Every thought, every movement that we make surrounds us with low frequency pulsations, whispers that were first detected in 1875 and are also necessary for life. The electricity that we use today, the substance that we send through wires and broadcast through the air without a thought, and was identified around 1700 as a property of life. Only later did scientists learn to extract it and make it move inanimate objects, ignoring, because they could not see, its effects on the living world. It surrounds us today in all of its colors at intensities that rival the light from the sun, but we still cannot see it because it was not present at life's birth. We live today with a number of devastating diseases that do not belong here, whose origin we do not know, whose presence we take for granted and no longer question. What it feels like to be without them is a state of vitality that we have completely forgotten, right, guys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anxiety disorder afflicting 1/6 of humanity did not exist before the 1860s when telegraph wires first encircled the earth. No hint of it appears in the medical literature before 1866. Influenza in its present form was invented in 1889 along with alternating current. It is with us always like a familiar guest, so familiar that we haven't forgotten that it wasn't always so. Many of the doctors who were flooded with the disease in 1889 had never seen a case before. Prior to the 1860s, diabetes was so rare that few doctors saw more than 1 or 2 cases during their lifetime. It too has changed its character. Diabetics were once skeletally thin. Obese people never developed the disease. Heart disease at that time was the 25th most common illness behind accidental drowning. It was an illness of infants and old people. It was extraordinary for anyone else to have a diseased heart. Cancer was also exceedingly rare. Even tobacco smoking in non-electrified times did not cause lung cancer. These are the diseases of civilization that we have also inflicted on our animal and plant neighbors, diseases that we live with because of a refusal to recognize the force that we have harnessed for what it is. The 60-cycle current in our house wiring, the ultrasonic frequencies in our computers, the radio waves in our televisions, the microwaves in our cell phones. These are only distortions of the invisible rainbow that runs through our veins and makes us alive, but we have forgotten. It is time that we remember. Very, 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 I mean,
that is beautiful.
That's what you guys are working with, the electrical system. We are electric. That's why you can get an EKG. So I want to just continue with this so I can follow a thread here. We have here on November 1st, the country's 3-state run, this is China. China just switched on the world's largest 5G network. Okay, this was on November 1st of 2019. The country's 3-state telecom operators launched services for the next generation wireless technology on Friday. That was November 1st. China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom are all offering 5G plans that start at blah, 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 giving Chinese internet users access to the ultra-fast service. 5G commercial services are now available in 50 cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, blah, 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 according to Chinese state, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you say, well, what's the big deal? Now, very interesting. If you go back to the Spanish flu epidemic of 1917-18, the U.S. Human Health Services went in after and tried to actually infect people, a person who was affected with the Spanish flu, by taking their secretions and putting them in the faces and the eyeballs and the noses and the mouths of people who didn't have it and could not transmit it. They did 3 experiments and could not transmit this flu. However, at that was the time the telegraph, all of the telegraph things were ramping up. It looks like all of these major things we've seen, epidemics have been at a time when there was a change in electrical frequency. So now, here we go. Now, why is 5G? Oh, by the way, and this is why it's not one size fits all. In Keene here, there's a moratorium. The voters of Keene rejected 5G technology, right? So if you buy my hypothesis that this has anything to do with making, okay, so let me do this. Okay. Scientists have been sounding the alarm about the dangers of fifth generation wireless technology. Some countries have heeded the warning about wireless radiation and the harmful effects of EMFs. China, on the other hand, has completely ignored all warnings and has proceeded to unleash 5G faster than any other nation. In fact, China just rolled out, blah, blah, blah. Did the 5G launch in Wuhan, China, and that's where it was, cause widespread compromised immune systems? Why did the city's population suddenly become so vulnerable? Could it be that 5G oxidized, you guys will love this, important surveillance proteins of the innate immune system of the Wuhan population? Does 5G cause severe inflammation, damaging the innate immune system? Could it be that 5G does cause DNA breaks, as documented by scientists? This is all documented. Do these DNA breaks potentially affect innate immune molecules such as the mannose binding lectins, MBLs, which are primarily located on lung surfactant proteins A and D? MBLs are powerful defense molecules that have been clinically studied to target coronaviruses early in their replication cycle, preventing viral attachment. If MBL levels are compromised through oxidation, respiratory viruses can more readily take hold of the human host. Deficiency in MBLs also occurs when there is a 3 single-point mutation in exon 1 of the MBL2 gene. For an infectious agent to cause complication and or fatality, a person's immune system must be compromised. Did the launch of 5G in Wuhan, China help facilitate the outbreak of this deadly bioweapon? MBLs are a natural defense system in the human body used for biological recognition and surveillance at the molecular level. MBLs bind with sugars, allowing the protein to interact with many different kinds of viruses, bacteria, yeast, fungi, and protozoa, cloaked with such sugars. MBLs are unique because they can bind to the surface of microbes and activate the complement system in an antibody. They are one of the only antiviral systems that can break down the signature glycoprotein shell that surrounds coronaviruses, including Ebola, SARS, and MERS. Deficiency in mannose binding lectins is linked to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, neonatal sepsis, and respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, among other complications and respiratory illnesses. Scientists estimate that 10 to 30% of the population is deficient in MBLs, putting them at serious risk of complications from any and all respiratory infections. This is the most serious aspect of the coronavirus outbreak. Up to 30% of the population may already be susceptible to serious complications from this weaponized strain. 5G wireless radiation only compromises immunity further. After all, one of the documented symptoms of 5G is flu-like symptoms. Why is the fatality rate higher at the epicenter of the outbreak? And one more last thing, and then I'll be done.
Go, Becky, go.
Okay. Why 5C? So what's different about 5G, right? Okay, so you know we've all been doing, we've been using the internet, we've got Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. Now listen to this: 5G cell towers are more dangerous for 2 main reasons. First, 5G emits ultra high frequencies. The higher the frequency, the shorter the length of each wave. This means more waves hit our body in the same amount of time. Previous cellular generations emitted 1 to 6 gigahertz frequencies. 5G cell towers may emit frequencies as high as 300 gigahertz. Okay, 1 to 6 to 300. And if you look at your top cities in this country, Boston, New Orleans, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, this is all being rolled out. This is rolled out. You can find maps where this has been recently rolled out. And I'm telling you right now, it is a perfect, and it's a horrible storm, but it's a perfect storm. And I don't think it's one disease, one cause. I think we've got a conspiracy here, a few different factors. Second, 5G technology requires ultra-high intensity, since the shorter length millimeter waves, this is the MMV, used in 5G do not travel as far and get obstructed easier. With our current number of cell towers, the cell signal will not be reliable. To compensate, 5G cell towers will have to admit the lower 3, 4, and 4G waves as well, and many more mini cell towers will have to be installed. It is estimated that they will need a mini cell tower every 2 to 8 houses spaced.
Right.
All of this combined will greatly increase our radio frequency radiation exposure. Again, here in Keene, not one size fits all. We've rejected that. We've rejected 5G, and in a lot of places, and I think it's a wake-up call, but I think it's why we don't need to be thinking this virus is the same everywhere. And again, how keeping our organism strong, the host strong, is what is going to result in how our outcome is should we be infected with COVID-19.
So to put it in a nutshell, all that you just shared with us, a lot of great information there, is essentially that they're rolling out new technologies that may have an effect on our immune systems and may be exacerbating. So there's a virus around and it does spread, but if we're compromised, especially from something like that compromises our immune system and our respiratory system, that the effects are going to be a lot worse.
Exactly. And not everybody is affected the same. I know people who can't endure, they put smart meters on their houses and it makes them ill. I had a woman come to see me for EMF electromagnetic frequency sensitivity. She did an 1.5-hour session with me, and I've got a modem in here. I've got 2 wireless printers. I've got all kinds of stuff. I've got my computer. I have these stickies on that help block the emission of those things. And she, as sensitive as she was in here an 1.5 hours, and she was okay. But she is really ill otherwise. So if you take your vulnerable population who do not have strong immune systems and you slam this with this kind of thing that compromises the immune system, then you're going to have a much worse fallout in that vulnerable population. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and speaking of one size doesn't fit all, my understanding is in this area, New Hampshire, and especially this area, we really don't have any cases to speak of, and very few deaths in the state. And so, again, I think obviously maybe officials want to err on the side of caution, and that's understandable. But at the same time, there's a lot of downsides, as we talked about, and destruction that's occurring that will there'll be long-term effects of that could affect, obviously the economy and people's ability to function in society, and it can affect our healthcare system and all these different ramifications based on what's really, at this point, especially in this state, a relatively small impact compared to other things.
Right. But if you're talking about, like we're talking about society as a whole, and we're concerned with the whole society and the culture, we're in an age where disease is rampant, whether it's COVID-19 or any other disease. Unnecessary deaths happen every single day, right? And is it due to technology? Is it due to poor lifestyle choices? But the problem is, it seems like, the majority of society is on a medication. I actually did a class last night online. It's called Your Spine, Your Emotions, and the Law of Attraction. We could go down the rabbit hole, but I'm not going to. You can listen to that. It's on our Facebook page. But the idea is starting to see where we're at currently and where we've come from, because it's like we seem to perpetuate our problems every time. We don't seem to learn from our mistakes. And so the majority of society is on a medication, a daily medication to treat pain and chronic issues. And that is a completely archaic mindset. And unfortunately, this method of thinking has been something that we've been taught from a very young age, that you look for a chemical solution to all of our problems, not looking at what is the electromagnetic field around your house, exercising, are you putting good things into your body? You know, we're just thinking that if I have an ache, a pain, a worry, a challenge, a mental disorder, like Becky was saying, the anxiety and depression are rampant, that it's the solution is a chemical solution. And that's what is happening here again in us looking for a vaccine to fix all of our problems. And it's like, well, maybe the issue is a little deeper, and we need to look at ourselves instead of trying to get somebody else to take care of us. Like, you know, the fight or flight response is within us. It's as a whole, you know, we are magnetic beings. We, as Becky, you know, stated beautifully in that literature, we're energetic beings. And it's actually easier to be more in survival mode because it takes less energy to think on the negative, to just grab for something and take it internally, like from the outside in, as opposed to creating more energy in the body and being like, I got this. It's okay. I don't have to think in fear. Maybe it will be okay. You know, Dr. Shiva is becoming very prominent in the media, and he's saying, if we have a healthy immune system, you should be okay. And how do we do that? By taking care of ourselves and making really good choices. And the whole energy is a big part of it, because we're electromagnetic, we're acoustic, we have all these vibrations around us. And I'm sure Allison, you know a lot about the chi, which is the energy within the body, right? And so how
I have to guess her question.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I don't know if you kind of, your audio went out for a little bit, so I'm not sure if you had a direct question about where you were going with the chi, but definitely
talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're electrical beings. Thousands of years ago in China, they realized this, and they actually mapped out these pathways of electricity, and the needles are essentially electrical conductors, and you actually have to go to a certain depth when you insert a needle so that you go to that level of chi, which the loose translation of chi is energy. And when you get there on points that are more powerful, I can actually feel a buzz on my fingertips. And it's not uncommon for patients to feel this sort of electrical surge, especially if the energy is really blocked up there. So we're certainly electrical beings. Some research that is coming out now is saying that some theories, there's lots of different theories about how acupuncture works and lots of interesting research. One of them talks about the myofascial system. And the myofascial system is this lining of tissue that surrounds everything, our bones, our blood vessels, our muscles, everything in the body. And it's made of connective tissue, which is actually an electrical conductor, which is why if someone has knee pain, my preferred method to treat that is I'll treat their opposite elbow. Somehow the nervous system will translate that and treat it along these electrical pathways. So yeah, it's definitely powerful. I think some of the cause for concern with this coronavirus are the cases that we're hearing of like young, healthy people that are getting really sick from this. Does anyone have anything to add on that? And like, why will some people not develop some symptoms? And then some people, you hear these cases, and who knows if it's just, a very rare instance that's getting highlighted, and that's a normal in any type of viral situation, or like it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty around this, and that might be why this is different than other.
I think, first of all, a vast majority of the cases are from known compromised health situations, right? Of course, the people that are dying. And I also think that sometimes, when in our society, what people judge as healthy isn't necessarily healthy. People think they're healthy all the time. They come to my office and we do an exam. It's like, no, there's a whole lot going on here that we've just learned and been taught that, like, it's totally normal to have bowel disorder. It's totally normal to not have energy, to not sleep well, like all these things that people have, and everybody has them, and
You know
that
what?
you're basically healthy.
I got to tell you, I always tell people, no, it's common. It's not normal.
Yes.
Common.
You have to define what health is first.
It's common. It doesn't make it normal.
So so I just think, like a point to make here about is like we've been taught this method of minimizing our symptoms, not really listening to them. Like, what do they mean for us? And the main theme is so we have a symptom, we take something like you were saying, Tisha, to suppress that. And it's okay. It doesn't make it wrong or right. It just means, but it's created a mindset that as things have progressed, we're going into this situation with the same mindset instead of looking at, wow, it's such a radical thought to say, wow, I trust my body. I know that if I have adequate levels of vitamin D and C and A and I'm getting my rest and I'm taking care of myself, I trust that my body's okay. And we're creating this shroud of fear where we're all scared of like, my body can't do it. It's not, it's the environment, like you were saying before, it was Becky, when you're talking about how they're, trying to infect people and healthy people, when we're healthy, we don't get infected. So to your point, Allison, there's always outliers, but I think for the most part, there's some compromise there when a virus is able to take over. We may not know what it is. We may not be privy to that information, and they might not even know what it is. But I tell you, every day people come in and we find stuff that they had no idea was going on under the surface, and it had been for years before they were ever symptomatic.
I think another thing that, I've learned and very important, and I'd like to talk about that for a moment, and that is that the erroneous way that this was initially treated with ventilators, because this is a problem of hemoglobin and the oxygen carrying part of our, the blood, the hemoglobin that brings the oxygen to the lungs. So it's not a matter of like with flu, with influenza, with concomitant or, complicating pneumonia. This is a totally different problem. So with the ventilators, we're killing people with ventilators, blowing their lungs out with this forced inhalation, exhalation, and that's not treating the problem. This is why the drug hydroxychloroquine has been offered as a solution, and it's a good one in my opinion, speaking of medical solutions, because hydroxychloroquine was used for malaria because malaria has, even though that's a bacteria, not a virus, it has the same effect on the hemoglobin of the blood. It's a damage to the DNA, and hydroxychloroquine, that's how it works to repair this problem. So instead of ventilators, we need hyperbaric oxygen chambers and hydroxychloroquine, in my opinion. We're treating people wrong when they get these really difficult cases. And if they were treating them right from the get-go in the emergency rooms, the ICU units, I think we'd have a better thing. We're going after it's a different beast. It's a different presentation of problem. And if you don't get that right, then you're not going to have a good result. But I did want to say, I was reading in the New York Times last Sunday, officials had estimated that 140,000 hospital beds, this is virus deaths mount, but New York avoids predicted surge at hospitals so far. I'm not hearing that on the mainstream news. This is New York Times. Officials had estimated that 140,000 hospital beds might be needed to treat coronavirus patients. Only about 18,500 were in use by week's end. This is last week. New York's sweeping statewide quarantine orders have served as a model for other states, making everyone in the U.S. prisoners in their own homes, with the exception of certain essential workers. Now, Governor Andrew Cuomo is questioning whether a total shutdown was the right thing to do. Quote, "It was probably not the best public health strategy," unquote, he said.
Yeah, speaking of that too, I just wanted to mention, one of the things I think that, again, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I understand, but as a society, typically when we have a virus move through, people get it, and people that are strong and healthy survive it, and then they are immune to that, and they create an immunity which protects us all for the future. And one of the things I think that we're denying ourselves with this strategy is that when we all go back out, we have to come out of our houses at some point, or unless you're going to subscribing to Bill Gates' philosophy of we're going to stay inside for the next 18 months and then come out and get a vaccine. But we have to come out at some point, right? And I think in some ways it would be better if we all collectively had that, then that would be handled.
Yeah.
Just an
Yeah.
interesting,
I want to say something about what I was talking about earlier. I don't want to negate that medicine is not necessary, because that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, medicine can be life-saving, and it is necessary when necessary.
Oh, I agree. I agree
Okay.
totally. I wasn't like coming against you.
No. You just
Yeah.
made me realize that when I was saying that, I didn't want to come across as, don't ever take medicine, it's bad, because that's not the case at all. It is very vital in emergency situations, and this could be one. And Matt, you had said something, you were talking about it the other day about like the meaning behind this, and I just wanted you to share something or some of that you were explaining to me, because I think it's really prevalent to what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, we were probably talking about meaning of disease, probably one of those conversations. So I guess without going too off-road here, really what we were talking about is we were asking questions about things, because I think, it's so easy to often parrot things we hear and get an idea in our heads, and then becomes really dangerous when we say, yeah, I believe that, and then we wrap it with emotion and we hold on to it like a dog with a bone, all those things. And we all do it, and then it becomes really hard to change. Yeah. And so the opportunity here, and so may this crisis not be wasted. The opportunity here is to ask some deep questions, like what does this really mean for me? And what is the meaning of all of this? And is this a physiological virus, or is there a virus attitude that's much more effective to the mental and emotional landscape? What is it truly that health is, and how do I define my state? How can I move forward in a good way? Because this state of fear, and we're talking about all of these different aspects, the complexity of the human experience, and everyone knows that what happens when there is this collective fear, because we're so sensitive, is that we start to feel it too. And the truth is that oftentimes the fear you're feeling is not your fear. I'm gonna say that again. Oftentimes the fear that you're feeling is not your fear. It's in fact that you are so sensitive beyond what the conscious mind can understand, that you're picking up on other people's fear. And then it's so difficult to make these proper choices. Becky, I loved what you were talking about with the electricity of the beingness that we are, and Allison, the chi, and then Jean has things to say on all of that. So we study all of that too. We study, we will use surface EMG to look at what's going on electrically in the system in terms of, and that will actually help us map out autonomic nervous system function. All of the stuff up on the wall behind me, it shows basically how that system organizes everything in the body. So yeah, absolutely. Elbow for the knee and all these things. And when we talked about looking back onto, when there's a new stress or challenge, the nervous system goes through a cycle. Is there something in my past to navigate this? Can I fight it or flight it? Can I fit in with it? Can I control it? Can I, at this point, protect whatever's left and hope for the best, which inevitably creates a big void. And what we know about voids is that they will be filled. And if you're not filling it yourself, don't worry, society will do it for you. So what's interesting, if we measure those waves, Becky, is that you were talking about the increase in frequency. So that progression I just gave you, when you map that out, the increase in frequency goes through the roof. So you'll have a nice big undulating wave when someone's system is reaching to the past. When we are trying to protect whatever is left, it is screaming high. And here's what's super cool about this. When we map this out, so is it electric? Yeah, it's electric. And for all you mathematicians out there, the wave is actually acoustic. We have to measure it through an acoustic wave math in order to get it to actually match up with the system.
Wow.
Whoa, amazing, right? And yet we're electric beings. So, quick little side story. I was working, before doing this, I spent a lot of time in the, nature education world. And one of the most amazing people I ever worked with was this woman, Karen. And she is one of the most brilliant nature, and I would say that she is a mentor of the connected fabric of all life, and has the ability to bring that forward for somebody, but through a walk in the woods that is so profound it can be life-changing. I learned so much from her. And there was one time when we were deep in the woods in camp, and there was this crazy thunderstorm. So I want you to think about for a moment those times in your life where you've been like fully alive that you'll never forget. Chances are you weren't safe, you weren't secure, and you weren't comfortable. Like, I can guarantee it, in fact, because those are the days that all look like one in collective memory. Like, the last 30 years is just one day in my memory. Like, talk about a tragedy. So let's not focus on that. Let's focus on when you're fully alive. This thunderstorm hit, and something pulled me from up on the hill. And I remember running down to, there was this beautiful pond and a grassy area. And I mean, it was throwing it down. And we were in the mountains of New York. And who else is there but Karen? Incredible, incredible storm. So we're out there, and I remember standing, and I was so fully alive. And then here's the moment where life slows down and everything goes in slow-mo. And a lightning bolt comes down out of the sky. It's about 35 feet, front right, down the hill. Now, it's raining so heavy that the entire hillside is a wash of water. Okay. So the lightning bolt, it hits the ground. There's no sound. It's hits the ground, makes this amazing ball, and it travels straight up the hill. It hits a trough. It comes straight across the trough, and another big ball of like, boom, right under my foot. And I can tell you, we are electric because my muscles reacted big time to that. Whole foot, just boom. And then the sound. And in those moments, you wonder, you know, am I okay? Am I dead? What's happening here? And I just remember stepping back from that out of the puddle that I had been standing in. And Karen, wide-eyed and coming in, and she said, oh my gosh, did you just get struck by lightning? I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Did I? And so if any of you who are out there who may have had an experience where you've been touched by that unexplainably magnificent force, can say that it's something that then you have a connection with. And the electricity that runs through our body is so, so real. And while that's a very, you know, extreme example, it has the ability to change who we are. And also then we can look at that in terms of what it is that we want to become, and what it is that's important, and what it is that our very state is. Because we know that we can't be in protection and growth at the same time. We know at the same time that adversity brings about great strength, and that the best moments in our lives are not when we're safe, secure, and comfortable.
I got a comment on that. I started reading more of that book last night, and they used to have parties. Like they used to have parties where they'd electrocute. You'd hold hands and somebody would like put their hand in this. So this became a big fad, like in the 1800s. I can't tell you exactly when, but this was really, it was like how people got off. It was what people did for fun. And if you were wealthy, you had this like really lovely, very beautiful like thing, and you would have people come over and you would hold hands, and one person would put their hand in this and the other in the water, and it would just, the current would run down. I'm not kidding. People, this was their high. This was their heroin. So we'll talk more about that later, Matt.
Sure, and I'm not endorsing that.
I know, I'm just saying, I just had to say that. I just had to comment.
But we are incredible beings, and it's worth acknowledging how sensitive we are, how magnificent we are, and just what is possible. You know, what is that dream that you have? Now's the time. You have more time than ever, or if you don't and you're busier, then you know the importance of making the time to really get clear on what it is that you want, what it is that you dream for. And we've had a history recently of generations now, and one in particular that has worried about 24 hours and nothing else. And when we have that sort of short-sightedness, what we end up with is a system that isn't very healthy. And that truly is the momentum that we're talking about when, you know, Hans Selye and the stress response and all that. What is it that creates a not only sustainable, but in challenging times, resilient system?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Head, Allison.
Real quick. I would just love this opportunity to be some sort of shift in the norm for Americans and how we view healthcare, because it's such the norm right now that you wait until there's a huge problem that warrants going to a physician, and then oftentimes getting a pharmaceutical that's a really concentrated, powerful substance. It can have toxic effects and side effects. And yes, it's very amazing that we can do this, but it's emergency medicine and surgery too. We're physically being cut open. And the majority of people will wait until your symptom is so bad that you need that. And, just what Dr. Matt is saying, we have such an amazing ability in our bodies to get, to maintain a amazing state of health. And sometimes we just need a little bit of nudge. And if you can treat yourself preventatively, that's where Chinese medicine excels. We will take the pulse and look at the tongue, and we'll diagnose imbalances in the body before they manifest as symptoms. So we don't even need to know your symptoms. You can come in and we can figure out how to treat it. And then you'll never actually get the symptom because you were treating yourself beforehand. And that's such an empowering way to live. And it's a lot cheaper too. So, the COVID has an opportunity, a great shift.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison, for that. I appreciate that thought. And I think that's, kind of where we're all coming from, is that this is an opportunity, and we can go into fear and, watch the news all day long and get fed the terrible things about what's happening. And I think maybe over the top a little bit, or we can take the time and kind of look at ourselves and look at how we've been approaching things and say, wow, maybe there's an opportunity here, a better way to get stronger, in a lot of areas in our life.
Agree. And I think, the problem too is, I think the social distancing, and like I'd like to make the case, I don't think here in Keene, New Hampshire, we need to be worried about this like we are. I'm seeing people with masks driving alone in their car. Why do you have a mask on in your car? I had a woman question a woman who's doing some work with me for her practicum to get her doctors of nursing practice, coming back from lunch the other day, downstairs in the building, just wide-eyed fear, where's your mask? And then running between me and one of my clients downstairs to get out to her car, running through like running the gauntlet. And this is criminal that we have made people this afraid. I feel so bad for that woman. I don't think she'll probably ever get coronavirus, but she's going home. She's petrified. She's panicked. And it's wrong what we're doing. And I want to make a call for our local government. Let's open up. Let's get back. If you're vulnerable, like anything else, yes, take your precautions. Everybody, if you feel sick, stay home, but let's open our businesses back up. Let's open up people need to be getting their chiropractic care. I know you guys are open. They need to be getting their acupuncture. They need to be getting these things that keep their immune system strong. We're going about this all wrong, and we don't have the risk here in where we are. We do not have that risk. So let's get back to life. And let's stop social distancing. People are angry. Somebody's angry at me because I don't wear a mask. I'm like kind of going like, why are you wearing a mask? And it's just, it's getting very vicious, I think, and this is not healthy.
Yeah. And, maybe to end on a little humor here. And by the way, anybody who's still in the audience, if you do have a question or comment, you can put that in the Q&A and we can address that.
Yeah, I did see there is one, Gene. There is one question. Can we just grab that real quick?
It's not actually a question, it's a comment. So I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Brain zaps, but that makes sense because of the electrical kind of thing. Who knows? Maybe my friend's sister who has COVID-19 had brain zaps, she calls them. They traveled from her brain to her arms and hands when she was first affected.
Right, so think about what Allison was talking about in terms of the connective tissue that runs through the body and how that transmits. So we're dealing with an inflammation. And also some different layers. We won't get into what's going on in there right now, but just know that all translates. It travels through the nervous system and the connective tissue as one unit. If she's near a network chiropractor, that's what I would recommend. And I would resolve that issue because chances are there was some underlying reason why that was happening in the first place.
No question about it. Yeah. Hey, Tisha, you want to share just a couple of those thoughts that you did in the beginning? Because I thought they were kind of humorous in a way that I thought was educational as well. And the thing is, there's so much information coming at us. We were talking about the masks. Oh, masks are good. No, they're not good. oh yeah, they are good. No, they're not good. And it's, oh, we should lower fever. No, we shouldn't. And all this information is coming at us, and it's changing. And it reminds me of just how things have always been. Eggs are good. Oh, no, eggs are bad. No, eggs are good. Coffee's good. No, coffee's not good. Coffee is wine. Red wine is good. And so it's kind of the same thing, but now in the COVID sort of landscape. So I maybe chuckle a little bit. So maybe you want to share a couple of those.
Sure. All right. So this is just more for just a humor sake in the last few minutes, but so government coronavirus guidelines / logic. So one of the consistent things is that we should wash our hands, but that's always been consistent, right? Hopefully, right? Hopefully. So the rules, just to voice a few. One, like basically you can't leave your house for any reason, but if you can, or if you have to, then you can. 2, masks are useless, but maybe you have to wear one. It can save you. It is useless, but maybe is mandatory as well. So these are just some logic things. Stores are closed except for the ones that are open. Let me just see I don't want to go that. Gloves won't help, but they can still help. Everyone needs to stay home, except, sorry, I lost where I was, but it's important to go out. There's no shortages of groceries in supermarket, but there are many things missing when you go there in the evening, but not in the morning, sometimes. So, animals are not affected, but there is still a cat that's tested positive in Belgium in February when no one had been tested, plus a few tigers here and there.
Right. I was going to say tigers.
The Tiger King has something to do with that.
Well, let me interject. We had a bear. We have a bear who got into our bird feeders in the center of downtown Keene. You know why? Because there's no humans or cars around. Come on, let's get back to life. The bears need to go back into the woods.
Right. Exactly. You can get restaurant food delivered to the house, which may have been prepared by people who didn't wear masks or gloves, but you have to have your groceries decontaminated outside for 3 hours. Pizza too? So you can walk around with a friend, but not with your family if they don't live under the same roof. I don't know. The virus stays in the air. Well, no, or yes, maybe, especially in a closed room. In 1 hour, a sick person can infect 10. If it falls, our children were already infected at school before it was closed. But remember, if you stay at a recommended social distance, however, in certain circumstances, you should maintain a greater distance, which studies show the virus can travel further, maybe. I don't know. So
I think maybe is the operative word.
Maybe, right? And we should stay locked up until the virus disappears, but it'll only disappear if we achieve collective immunity. So when it circulates, but we must no longer be locked up for that, right? So anyway, just a few little non-logical, logical, maybe sort of.
Yeah, some of you may remember the years ago, they had the chicken pox parties and things like that.
Yeah.
So everybody could get their chicken pox and get it over with.
We got a great comment here. Thank you guys. Great discussion. I agree with it all. We need more awareness in our community of what is true and what is fear. Well said.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, you know, the gist of the conversation is just kind of step back for a second and look at what we're doing and look at how we're responding. And we can definitely, like Matt was talking about and Tisha talking about, have respond in a way that's more empowering to us rather than retracting and just being about fear. You know, definitely take your precautions, especially if you're compromised, but I'm kind of with Rebecca on this as well. So
Yeah.
but these you know, obviously for the audience out there, we all are separate practitioners and people, and we all have our own opinions, and so you know, we're all different, and we don't want to be clumped into one thing, just thoughts that we share.
Yeah.
Amen.
Make logical decisions for yourself. You have to do what's right for you.
Right.
So.
And get some. You got to get some of that good D that's available today in the sun.
Yeah,
So
get out there.
get out there, get some of that good vitamin D going.
Yeah, and I want to tell people there is, if you go to greenmedinfo.com, which is a wonderful resource I love, there's a stand for health freedom. It's designed so wherever you are, you can fill this out. It's a letter to your governor and to your mayor, and it's very well said and call to action to open up our businesses and get our lives back on track here in our community ASAP for everyone's health and well-being. And let's just get on with it. Everybody use your common sense. You know, if you need to, you know what you need to do to protect you and your loved ones when you feel that you're vulnerable. If not, let's let our workforce get back, your healthy working force. Let's get back and let's do it.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to go out and get a cup of coffee, you know?
Priorities, right, Jean?
That's right.
Is coffee good or bad?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all.
Right.
So I don't see any more questions. Thank you all for joining us. And I guess we'll be back here next week and probably piggybacking off what we talked about today and getting into some more juicy things. So thank you all out who got on the Zoomcast here, and also all of you, I'm sure we're out in Facebook land and all our different pages and stuff. So hopefully we've been able to get out to a bunch of people and stir the pot of thought so that we can step back and kind of consider the direction we're going and how we might want to make modifications. So,
All right.
Thank you all.
anybody have any other closing thoughts?
Just goodbye, everyone.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Have a great weekend.
So grateful for you all. Gratitude.
Yeah, and chime in if you have anything you want us to discuss. We'd love your opinion so we can kind of tailor it more towards you.
Go to our Facebook page, go to our websites, whatever, and just if you have something you want us to talk about, let us know. We'd love
Yeah,
to
we do
it.
have, for those of you who don't know, a Facebook page, the Proactive Health Collective of Keene. How's that?
Yes.
PHK.
CK, yeah.
PHCK.
Yeah.
But check it out. Yeah, check it out. Share it with your friends. And I guess if you do have any questions that come up, if you maybe type them in there, we'll see them for next time. Or you're always welcome to get on the Q&A in the box. I don't think we're monitoring. Nobody's monitoring all those Facebook feeds. I know I'm not monitoring mine.
So I just also wanted to say, thanks to our IT director, Jael, we have a YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, Proactive Health Collective of Keene, and that's where we'll be storing all of our sessions.
Right. So if you could also go to that YouTube and then share it with your friends on your Facebook feed or whatever. And awesome.
Yeah.
Great thought. So,
Thank you, everyone.
all right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great one. Take care.
Bye.
So long.